Is Uber safe? This topic is up for debate as there's been many crimes surrounding the company, from fake Uber drivers turned to killers, to those saying the Uber app was controlling their minds, and from road rage gone horribly wrong. Let's look into the unsettling stories of Uber criminals. Jason Dalton was an Uber driver who has been given the title of the Uber Killer after shooting and killing 6 people while injuring 2 others. His reason behind this? The app told me to do it. But before we go any further, let's look at the events prior to the shootings. Jason Dalton would make a couple quick visits to 3 different gun stores. At one of the shops named Southwick's, he would buy a black jacket with a chest pocket designed to conceal a handgun. The store owner, Jason Southwick, explained how Jason was in good spirits and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He would occasionally shop there, but at that specific moment, he didn't buy any sort of weapon. A couple hours later, Jason would start his day off as an Uber driver. Matt Wellen requested an Uber pickup to drive him over to a friend's house. During the drive, Jason would receive a phone call. After finishing the call, he allegedly started driving crazy, which included him missing a couple stop signs and almost causing a bunch of collisions. He would then inform the police about the situation, and the dispatcher would eventually put a be on the lookout notification on the vehicle. Let's quickly listen to the 911 call Matt Wellen did.
Hi, I'd like to report a crazy driver. I just got an Uber to my friend's house, and on the way there, he was driving neurotic down West Main. He hit a car. He drove through the woods, and I finally just jumped out.
Did you want to talk to an officer, or you just want me to put out an alert over the radio?
I just wanted to report it because I don't want someone to get hurt.
I understand what you're saying, but I need to know if you want to talk to an officer or if you want me to have an officer. Just have the officers just be on the lookout for it.
I just want to be on the lookout.
Okay, thank you.
Matt's girlfriend would even post on Facebook warning those about Jason and his chaotic driving. After this happened, Jason would return home and call his wife, asking her for the keys to their Chevy HHR, since his current car was on the lookout. She agreed, and Jason would soon accept another pickup. This was from a woman who wanted him to pick up her boyfriend at a Richland Township apartment complex, which is where the first shooting would occur. Once arriving at the location, Jason would repeatedly shoot at a woman in the apartment complex parking lot. Her name is Tiana Carruthers, who suffered critical injuries from the shots, but would survive due to her playing dead in order to prevent Jason from doing any further damage. To make it clear, Tiana wasn't the one who actually made the Uber call, it was instead from a teenage girl named Macy. Eventually, Jason would never pick her up as he was having difficulty looking for her in the area, which could be seen through this camera footage. After the first shooting, he went back home to explain to his wife about the car situation. He assured her by saying that his car got sidewiped by a reckless taxi driver who fired a gunshot at him due to rage. Jason would then offer her a 9mm Taurus handgun to defend herself. He would further explain that she needed to stay home and also made sure that the kids didn't go to school that day. Jason would then leave the house and attempted to start the Hummer H3, but with little success. He would then go back to the original Uber car and inform his wife that he could not tell her what was going on, but that it would be on the news. Now, this is where things start to get a little more disturbing. We'll be looking at the KIA dealership and Cracker Barrel shooting. Upon approaching the dealership, father and son Richard and Tyler Smith were working on their car tires. At the time, Tyler was looking to get a truck. Tyler's girlfriend Alexis also was there, but she remained in the car. Jason would then approach Richard and Tyler and ask them what they'd been looking at, but before they could even answer, he would fire 18 rounds, fatally killing them. Alexis did witness this, but she luckily left with no harm. And out of nowhere, once again, another shooting occurred just 15 minutes later. The third shooting happened right outside a Cracker Barrel, which was about 8 kilometers away from the KIA dealership. In the parking lot, Mary Jo Nye, Mary Lou, Dorothy Brown, and Barbara Hawthorne were the victims of this incident. They were inside 2 separate vehicles, with one of them having a third person, Abigail Koff. She was initially believed to be dead after being shot in the head, but survived with critical injuries. All the ladies mentioned were literally just about to pull out of the parking lot, but just due to unlucky timing, they were the ones that got shot. And just after this, he went back to Ubering people just like nothing happened. And the thing is that the people in the Uber with Jason had no suspicion against him. Little did they know what happened just minutes earlier. The police would continue the manhunt and eventually found Jason Dalton after finding him dropping off 3 passengers in the area. After following him, they pulled him over at a traffic stop and arrested him. Prior to his killings and arrest, Jason didn't have any sort of criminal record. In fact, he was just an average guy. So what could have caused him to commit such a horrible crime? There were no clear signs of anything hostile. He only picked up the job as an Uber driver 2 weeks before the killings to make a little bit of cash on the side to help pay for his upcoming trip to Disneyland with his family. There must have been something to help trigger this event, right? Well, let's look at what Jason had to say.
The symbol that's on Uber. Could you bring my phone up to me so I can see it? When I clicked it, it went chink, and then there was like a double head that popped up. And I pressed that button, and that's where all the problems went after that. I've experienced the full body takeover. It literally has control of you. I would have never done any of these atrocities that have happened.
Right. What made you get your firearms tonight? The app? The Uber?
Yeah, I can't make that up. I always hate it when people always try to be like, oh, it's the devil that did this to me, or God told me to do this, or like, it's almost like they're trying to plead insanity, and by doing this, they'll believe that, hey, you know what, maybe they'll lessen my sentence. But we all know that doesn't happen. In the end, Jason Dalton was charged with 6 counts of murders, 2 counts of assaults with intention to commit murder, and 8 counts of using a firearm during the commission of a felony. In February 2019, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Just recently, a woman known as Jane Doe decided to take an Uber from Alpine to meet a friend in El Cajon. Unfortunately, the Uber driver, who was named Michael Jordan, no, not this Michael Jordan, but Michael Marcus Jordan, had a bit of a bad reputation. Michael has a violent criminal past as he's been convicted twice of felony assaults with a deadly weapon. He has also allegedly raped another woman earlier in the year, which was something Jane wasn't aware of. It should also be explained that Jane has been sexually assaulted in the past. When traveling, she's explained that she likes to use Uber instead of the other ride-sharing companies because Uber has stated that they conduct a multi-step screening process for potential drivers. But it wasn't put to good use this time around. On the night of the incident, Jane explained how the ride from Alpine to El Cajon was fine. It was the ride back home that was much worse. She fell asleep in the backseat, but would later wake up to Michael inappropriately touching her and groping her. She explained how he could reach her in the backseat of the car while driving with one hand. She did try to do a couple things to defend herself, such as recording him, but in the end he would just swat her phone out. She even had a small knife on her in which she attempted to stab him, but once again Michael did grab the knife from her and threw it out the car window. Jane would report all of this, and just a couple days later on October 4th, Michael was charged with 3 felony counts, but not for this incident. It was for something he did back in October 2020. But that wasn't all. Back in January 2020, he was accused of another woman, as well as having 3 other violent charges, and it keeps on going, as he faced a 3rd felony count in July 2021. Currently, Michael is banned from Uber and is dealing with criminal investigations. I just wonder how his previous actions weren't investigated before he became an Uber driver. He became a driver in 2019 and passed the 7-year background check, but as stated, he committed crimes in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Uber does yearly criminal background checks, so how wasn't he caught beforehand? I'm just gonna make things clear before I go any further. Nathaniel Rowland, the guy who's about to be mentioned in this case, wasn't an Uber driver. If you search up his name online, you'll likely see the title Fake Uber Driver. With that being said, I still decided to add this case because it was so bad that they had to add a couple of safety acts for this particular case. But I'll talk about that soon, I don't want to spoil it so much, so stay tuned to see it. Samantha Josephson was a student at the University of South Carolina. She earned a full scholarship to Drexel University, as well as a partial scholarship to Rutgers. She also aspired to practice international law. The future looked bright for Samantha as she was planning on graduating in 2019 and attending Drexel University School of Law. Until one night, it would all go wrong. On March 29, 2019, Samantha would spend the night in the 5 Points district in downtown Columbia with her friends. At around 2 AM, Samantha decided to leave the Bird Dog bar and ordered an Uber. The surveillance camera shows Samantha waiting outside the bar talking on the phone with her boyfriend, Greg. Both of them use an app named Find My Friends, which would show where they were at all times when connected to it. Upon arrival, we can see Samantha hop into a black Chevrolet Impala, but little does she know, The car she got inside of wasn't her Uber driver. The driver of the car, Nathaniel Rowland, would drive Samantha away from her destination and prevented her from leaving the car by activating the car's child locks. Greg noticed that Samantha was being transported to a different location, and this caused him to freak out. He would then call her and text her a bunch of times wondering where she went, but of course, she didn't respond to anything. After not responding to any of her messages last night, Greg decided to call her workplace the next morning to see if she made it, and of course, she didn't. This caused Greg and her roommates to file a missing person report. Greg went back to the Bird Dog bar and managed to get a hold of the security camera footage, since he knew friends that were working the same night Samantha disappeared. After seeing and grabbing the footage, they would then show it to the police. But little did they know, the search for Samantha was already over. Samantha was found dead 65 miles away from Five Point. Her body was found in the field of a town of New Zion. It was discovered that Samantha was stabbed over 120 times. Now, I can't go into too much details around this case, but to put things in perspective, the autopsy revealed that Samantha only had 1.3 tablespoons of blood left in her body. So, let's take that in. Just a day after the death, the suspect was finally captured after the police found the same guy driving around. Upon investigating the car, they found bleach, wipes, window cleaners, Samantha's phone, and a large amount of blood. They would later find more cleaning supplies and a two-bladed knife, which was the weapon used to kill her, at his house later that day. In the end, Nathaniel Rowland was charged with kidnapping, murder, and the possession of a weapon. During the trial, prosecutors called 31 witnesses, so there was absolutely no way he was going to be let go free. I want to end this case on a good note, knowing how horrible it was. Because of this case, both of Samantha's parents established the What's My Name Foundation, which basically educates people about rideshare safety, along with charitable foundations. There's even a safety act based around her, in which the act requires rideshare vehicles to display license plate numbers and more identity features. Honestly, in most cases, there's not really that much of a positive ending, but in this case, there was actually a lot of legal action that took place and made things better. Jacob Allemon was an Uber driver who was charged for shooting a man 5 times after he disrespected his car before getting inside the vehicle. I'm gonna give you guys a couple of seconds on why he decided to shoot the victim, so I'll give you guys like 5 seconds. The passenger tapped his car window to let him know that both him and his wife were outside the vehicle. So that's why he, shot him. Now, once the couple got in the car, Jacob would explain that he felt offended about the whole situation and wanted to know why the man would do such a horrible thing. But it didn't take that long for Jacob to kick them both out of the car and leave them off the side of the road. Now, both passengers asked if they could wait for another Uber to pick them up since it was a heavy snow day and they didn't want to wait outside. But this is where things took a wrong turn, and this made Jacob really angry, in which he would stab the man 5 times. In order to save himself, the man would try to choke out Jacob, but wasn't that successful. The good news is that the victim managed to restrain himself from Jacob and was taken to a local hospital where he was properly treated and released the next day. Jacob was charged with assault with intent to do great bodily harm less than murder, and had a bond sent to $250,000. On top of that, he was sentenced to 90 days behind bars, probation, 200 hours of community service, and had to do a full course of anger management classes. Okay, now what I'm about to show you is something that rarely ever happens. During the court trial, both Jacob and the victim met eye to eye, and this happened.
100 other times. And I'm so sorry that you had to be the person that this happened to, the people that this happened to.
All I gotta say is that the victim has a big heart, because if that was me, I would not be shaking hands with the guy who stabbed me. It's 5 times, that's crazy. But he's just different. Deshawn Longmire was an Uber driver that was charged in the death of Houston pastor Ronald Mouton. The reasoning behind it? Road rage. Now, there were many witnesses in the area who saw the event, but they couldn't really figure out why they were arguing in the first place since there was a lot of traffic and a bunch of noise. They were both arguing in their cars at the time, and without a warning, Deshawn would pull out his pistol and shot Ronald, in which he would then immediately drive off. He was pronounced dead on the scene as his car crashed into a nearby curb. Deshawn was then quickly traced as he wasn't that far away from the incident. He was caught easily by witnesses, and since he was technically on the job for Uber that day, they tracked down his license plate and were able to find his Uber records on his phone. Originally, the state was asking for a $1 million bond, but Deshawn's public defender requested a lower bond of $35,000 and explained how Deshawn's prior charges and actions were non-violent misdemeanors. Okay, sure, I guess. You sure? The judge settled on a $500 bond plus his murder charge. It's crazy to think that this whole situation started because of road rage. I mean, people do get mad all the time while driving, but to actually pull out a gun and just shoot someone is just... it's crazy to me. This just proves that you never know what someone's actually going through, and if you make them mad or if you like disrupt them or anything, they could lash it out all on you and that's your life. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave any criticism down below, it helps me a ton. I'll be leaving my Discord server link in the pinned comment and in the description if you wish to join. I also want to thank you guys for getting this channel to 33,000 subs. Thank you guys so much for trusting this channel and for showing support. But that's the end of the video. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, have a great one.